My fiancé canceled our wedding because his sister is getting divorced for cheating, but I told him to return the money to my dad for the wedding expenses, or he might end up buried alive in the backyard. I'm 28 years old, and I've been with my fiancé Terry, who's 30, for 5 years. We were supposed to get married tomorrow. Yes, you read that right, we're supposed to, because as of last night, all of it went up in smoke. And the worst part? It was over the dumbest reason imaginable. His sister is getting divorced because she cheated. Terry and I met through mutual friends at a housewarming party. We hit it off that night and started dating soon after. Everything just flowed naturally between us. 3 years in, he proposed during a weekend getaway in the mountains. We were staying at a cozy Airbnb cabin, sipping wine by the fire. I thought we were just having a chill night. Then he pulled out the ring, and I burst into tears before I even said yes. Since then, we've spent the last year and a half planning our wedding. And I mean everything was done, venue booked, photographer hired, dress tailored, cake flavors tested. We had 120 guests coming from all over. Catering locked in, flowers arranged, hotel rooms reserved. Everything. Tomorrow was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives. Now? I'm sitting here with a half-packed suitcase, no wedding, and a fiancé who suddenly feels like a complete stranger. Terry has always been close to his family, especially his older sister, Olivia. She's 44, a successful lawyer, big house, married to Richard, a 46-year-old surgeon. 2 kids, picture-perfect life. Terry practically worships her. He's always admired her in a way that, honestly, has felt a little intense. Whenever he made a major decision, he wanted her input. She's a lawyer, he'd say. She knows better than anyone. When we got engaged, he cared more about Olivia's reaction than even his own parents. At first, I didn't mind. Olivia was warm and friendly. She even helped us during the early planning stages, recommending vendors, helping find venues, offering advice. But about 3 months ago, she started pulling away. Terry began canceling plans at the last minute. During family dinners, he barely made eye contact and was glued to his phone. At first, I figured she was stressed or dealing with something personal. Terry noticed too, but shrugged it off as work stuff. Then yesterday, literally the day before our wedding, Terry came home pale, like he'd seen a ghost. I thought someone had died. He sat me down and told me that Olivia had just received divorce papers that morning. Her husband Richard had found out she'd been having a 6-month affair with a coworker. And he had proof, texts, emails, hotel receipts. Everything. Richard was furious and already filing for full custody, claiming Olivia's moral character made her unfit for shared custody. It got ugly fast and hit everyone out of nowhere. I was stunned. I felt bad for the kids, honestly. Divorce is rough, infidelity makes it worse. The children always suffer when things turn nasty. I told Terry it was a terrible situation, and we'd support Olivia the best we could. But still, we had a wedding tomorrow. That was me being naive. There was no wedding. Terry told me we needed to postpone it. At first, I thought he meant a few hours. Maybe a day, at most. But no, he wanted to cancel the entire thing. Scrap the wedding we'd been planning for a year and a half. And use the venue, the food, the music, the decorations, for a divorce party. For Olivia. To lift her spirits. His words. Not mine. He said we couldn't celebrate love and marriage while her own was falling apart. That it didn't feel right to go through with the wedding while Olivia was in pain. I seriously thought he was joking. Anyone hearing this would think, you've got to be kidding me. But he wasn't. He genuinely wanted to cancel our wedding and throw a party to cheer up his sister, who cheated on her husband and destroyed her family. So not only was he canceling the wedding, he wanted to celebrate that. If that's not a red flag, I don't know what is. Bright red. China red. And no, he wasn't asking for my thoughts. He was just telling me. Like I had no say. Of course I was upset. He kept going on and on about how Olivia needed this. How it could be fun. How it would be a positive gesture. Once the shock wore off, I tried to stay calm and think logically. I figured maybe Terry was just overwhelmed. Maybe he was high on something. Because no sane person would suggest this with a straight face. So I threw a glass of water in his face. He looked stunned. I told him, now that you're awake, start over. But no, he stuck to the same script. Olivia needs this. The family needs this. You'll see, you need this too. I offered a compromise. Something reasonable. I suggested we go through with the wedding as planned, and then later, after the formal stuff, Olivia could have her own celebration. A fresh start. Divorce party. Whatever. Just not on our wedding day. Or maybe, if the venue allowed it, we could extend the reception a little. Give her a couple of hours at the end of the night. But that was it. It made sense. I mean, anything makes more sense than what he was asking. Just in case someone still doesn't get it, Terry wanted to cancel our wedding, to celebrate a cheater. And no, he didn't see it that way. Either the shrooms he took were incredibly strong, or Olivia hit him in the head with a hammer while she was confessing, because nothing else explains his logic. He got mad. Said I was being selfish. That I was putting my happiness above others. That I had no heart. That I didn't care what Olivia was going through. He even told me I was showing red flags, for not immediately agreeing to pause everything for her. Then he dropped this line. Your reaction is making me question everything about us, and whether we're really meant to be together. I was furious. So I told him, maybe I don't have a heart, but at least I have a brain. And no, I didn't care. Olivia cheated. I don't hate her, but I'm not canceling my life to comfort her. I don't know, call me crazy. Call me heartless. Call me whatever you want. But from where I'm standing, she should feel bad. She cheated. And that sounds like a pretty reasonable consequence. So here I am, sitting alone, writing this, because obviously, he felt offended by my lack of empathy. Today, less than 24 hours before what was supposed to be my wedding day, this is where things stand. My dress is hanging in the closet. Our guests have already started arriving in town. Some flew in from other states. They took time off work, spent money on gifts and hotels. My parents spent tens of thousands of dollars to make this day special for us. I still love Terry. Or at least I thought I did. But I'm starting to realize I may not know him as well as I thought, because the man I've been dealing with over the past 24 hours. I don't recognize him at all. And I keep wondering, is this who he really is, when things get hard? Update 1. Just a quick update. First, thank you, within just a few hours, you left more comments than I ever expected, I thought maybe 2. Life is moving fast for me right now, too, so here's what happened. After posting here, I took some time to think and decided to stand my ground. I called Terry and told him I was willing to cancel the wedding, but he would have to reimburse my parents for every cent they'd spent. I wasn't planning on having a wedding with him at any point in the future. But he needed to pay for the mess he made. You don't cancel a wedding last minute for your sister, or, as many people pointed out, because you have doubts and come up with a cheap excuse. I explained that our wedding was about our commitment, and that canceling it at the last minute wasn't just a financial disaster, it would deeply disappoint all of our guests who had made time and sacrifices to be there. Terry didn't take it well. He said he couldn't come up with that kind of money, that it was too much for him, and that we never could have afforded this wedding without my parents' help. Which, yeah, that's true. It wasn't his money. And he knew that. But he had already contacted the venue and several vendors to start changing the details of our wedding, to fit what he wanted. Talking to Terry was getting nowhere. So I went to the source of the problem. I decided I needed to speak directly with Olivia. I drove to her house expecting to find her devastated. But what I found was something entirely different. She was calm, drinking wine with a friend, and actually seemed relieved about the divorce. When I mentioned Terry's suggestion about turning the wedding into a divorce party, she looked genuinely confused, then embarrassed. She told me she never asked for that and would be horrified if we cancelled our wedding because of her. Turns out, Olivia had suspected Richard knew about the affair for weeks. The divorce papers weren't a surprise to her. And while she was sad about the end of the marriage, she had already made peace with it. What she was really worried about was custody and keeping things civil for the kids. I called Terry as soon as I left Olivia's house and told him what she said. His response was strange. He said if Olivia hadn't asked to postpone the wedding, then that was even more reason why we should. Because, according to him, how could we celebrate love when his sister's love had failed? At that point, the only thing I wanted to celebrate with him was a punch in the face. I told him his sister didn't care about any of this, that she was sipping wine and celebrating on her own. That all of this was just his nonsense and his fear of getting married. Terry hung up on me. Apparently, I was being difficult. After talking with my parents and my maid of honor, I made a difficult decision. I told Terry that the wedding would proceed exactly as planned, with or without him. If he chose not to show up, I'd inform the guests and turn the event into a celebration with the people who love and support me. To my surprise, he showed up at my parents' house an hour later. He was calmer, but still insisted on postponing the wedding. My dad wanted to strangle him on the spot. Bury his body in the backyard and build a gazebo over it so no one would ever find him. He didn't say that, but his mustache twitched with the energy of that exact vibe. Maybe it was the look on my dad's face. Or maybe it was the realization that I had a new plan. But Terry finally admitted what I think was the real issue. He's scared. Seeing his sister's marriage fall apart triggered some serious commitment anxiety. He admitted he was afraid of ending up like Olivia and Richard. That postponing the wedding felt like a way to avoid making a mistake. I was stunned. I never would have guessed that it was all about him. That even his cheating sister wasn't the dumbest one in the room. Sorry for the sarcasm. I told him it would have been more honest to start with that, rather than pitching the world's most ridiculous suggestion. He left. I haven't heard from him since last night. I've decided to continue with the celebration, for myself. I won't let my dad's money go to waste. My dad still wants to sue him. We considered canceling the event entirely, but that would have been unfair to the guests who traveled and made plans. And we wouldn't have gotten much money back anyway. These people came for a party, so we're going to give them one. Update 2. So, the day of the wedding arrived. The one that never happened, or at least, not the way we had imagined it for the last year and a half. That morning, I got a text from Terry. He said he couldn't go through with the wedding. Not because of Olivia anymore, but because he needed more time to think about our future together. There was no real explanation. No call. No face-to-face conversation. Just a message. A few hours before the guests were set to arrive. I replied. Take your time. Don't stress. No one will be waiting for you when you're ready. But I had to make a quick decision. We had 120 guests in town. Many from out of state. Some from overseas. Everything was paid for, the venue, the food, the flowers, the music. So I did what I could. I talked to my parents and my bridal party. After some tears and hugs, I decided I wouldn't let it all go to waste. We turned the day into something else. I sent out a general message, briefly explaining that the wedding wouldn't happen as planned, but everyone was still welcome to come, eat, dance, and be part of a celebration. Maybe the message also said something like celebrating that I dodged a bullet. I can't confirm that. Even if I wrote it myself. The idea was to avoid public humiliation for Terry. But let's just say the message may have painted a very vivid picture. And you know what? A lot of people showed up anyway. Even though it sounded like a crazy idea, friends, family, even some of Terry's relatives who were just as shocked and disappointed as I was. Terry may or may not have discovered that the party happened. Once the photos started popping up online, people started calling it the Dodged Missile Gala. There were pictures of the dancing, speeches, hugs, even gifs of Neo dodging bullets from the Matrix. He started flooding my phone with messages. Said he panicked. That seeing everyone there without him made him realize what he was losing. He even wanted to turn the party back into a wedding on the spot because now he was ready. No reply. I still love him. I won't lie. You don't stop loving someone in a few hours. But that doesn't change anything. The rational part of me doesn't want to marry him. Not now. I'm staying with my parents. I haven't gone back to the apartment we rented together. Terry and I lived together, so now there's the practical stuff to deal with, our things, the lease, everything else. Update 3. Yesterday, I met with Terry for the first time since the wedding that never happened. I thought it would be a quick, focused conversation, just to sort out the logistics of our separation and divide the few things we had together. Stuff like the joint account, etc. But when Terry showed up, he looked awful. And I thought, oh no, this isn't going to be simple. He clearly hadn't been sleeping much. For someone who's supposed to be mentally functioning, this wasn't good. I knew right away this wouldn't be an easy or quick talk. Before saying anything, he handed me a handwritten letter. It was signed by Olivia, but I don't know her handwriting. Still, it looked suspiciously like my ex-fiancé's. In the letter, Olivia admitted something I never would have imagined. Terry had deliberately exaggerated his emotional distress over the divorce, and Olivia had directly encouraged him to postpone our wedding. She confessed that she'd always felt threatened by our relationship, especially by the attention Terry gave me, attention that used to be reserved for her. According to her own words, that envy had been simmering long before our engagement, lingering throughout our relationship. She admitted to subtly but constantly manipulating Terry. While the divorce from Richard was real, her dramatic reaction wasn't entirely genuine. She pretended to be more devastated than she actually was and leaned heavily on Terry, at the exact moment she knew he'd be most vulnerable. Right before the wedding. She didn't expect him to go as far as canceling the entire event and turning it into a divorce celebration. But when he suggested it, she didn't stop him. In fact, she encouraged it, fully aware of what it would mean for me. But the fake Olivia had more to say. After seeing the event I organized, the celebration of love and friendship, and seeing the photos, the people who supported me, how they rallied around me in Terry's absence, something shifted in her. She called it a wake-up call. Seeing the love and support that surrounded me forced her to finally see the consequences of her actions. She said she realized just how far she'd gone trying to control Terry's life, and how much damage she had caused, not just to him, but to me, to Richard, and even to herself. Then she encouraged me to forgive Terry, because, in her words, he deserved another chance and it wasn't his fault. Terry, sitting across from me, looked visibly shaken the whole time. He told me that after the non-wedding, he had a deep conversation with Richard. Apparently, Richard pointed out some of Olivia's long-standing behavior patterns, and how they'd affected everyone around her for years. That got Terry thinking. Eventually, he confronted Olivia. That's when she supposedly confessed everything and wrote the letter. I have to wonder, when Olivia was writing that letter, was Terry standing over her with a gun to her head? Terry apologized over and over again. He admitted that for most of his life, he thought being a good brother meant dropping everything anytime Olivia needed him, whether it was serious or not. And now, he realizes how that blurred loyalty ruined all his relationships, including ours. He also said he started seeing a therapist, not just to heal from everything he's gone through, but to finally set boundaries with Olivia and to work on rebuilding something with me. He told me he wants a second chance. But he also said he understands if I can't trust him anymore. That's when I told him I had taken him back. And yes, we're planning another wedding. For a year from now. I even called my dad right then and there to let him know he'd need to fund a second wedding, and to stop digging the grave in the backyard. It wasn't a video call, but I could totally picture him on the other end, holding hands with my mom, jumping with bent knees in the air and shouting yes, at the top of his lungs. What I actually told him was that next time, maybe Terry could try writing a letter that looked a little more like it came from a woman. He asked what I was talking about, pointing out the feminine touches in the letter, like dotting the I with a little heart. I wasn't buying it. I told him I'd talked to Olivia and Richard, because yes, they came to the celebration of me dodging a bullet by not marrying him. So the letter made no sense. He started to respond, and I said, but nothing. Even if the letter was real, which it wasn't, did he really think I'd take him back? If he honestly believed that, it was time to hand over the drugs and check into a facility, because whatever he was on, it was hitting hard. I also told him he had 2 weeks to get the money together to repay my father. Or my dad would sue him for the wedding costs. My dad paid for a wedding that never happened, and Terry needs to own up to that. I think he left more defeated than he arrived. I don't know what he's going to do next. But my dad meant what he said, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's already shopping for a new shovel and a concrete mixer. Bonus notes, for those asking after my last post. Yes, I returned all the wedding gifts. I also sent thank you notes to everyone, explaining the situation respectfully. A lot of people told me to keep the gifts, but it didn't feel right. Returning them felt clean and responsible. About my in-laws, there are none. Terry and Olivia lost their parents a few years ago. That's why they haven't had a say in any of this. And about Richard? No, I don't blame him one bit for telling the truth about the affair right before the wedding. He had just found out and was dealing with his own trauma. Our wedding wasn't even on his radar, and it didn't need to be. The issue was never when we found out, it was Terry using it as an excuse for his own doubts. Honestly, I don't even believe he wants to marry me now. But if I let him back into my life, he'd just have more time to chicken out again. Commitment doesn't scare him when it's far away. But once it gets close, he starts inventing reasons. Next time, he'll say he got abducted by aliens, and after they released him, he felt so sad for them that he thought our wedding should be repurposed as a party to cheer them up. Update 4. Here's an update for those who were asking whether we'd need to start planning another wedding to cheer someone up over Terry's disappearance, assuming he still exists. My dad has officially cancelled Operation Bury Terry Alive, where no one will find him. Terry agreed to pay my dad back for the wedding, or at least something close to it. And for those saying the money wasn't wasted because we still threw a party, feel free to go tell that directly to my father, who was thrilled to have thrown away thousands of dollars while his daughter didn't get married. That money was for a wedding. Not for an impromptu consolation party. Now go try telling him that. And let me know how it goes. Just keep in mind, the backyard's big enough to start a small Native American burial ground. Anyway, back to the money. Terry called me 2 weeks after I gave him the ultimatum, either pay my dad back or get taken to court. He said he could get the money by taking out a loan, but only if I agreed to give him a second chance. And kids, if you're reading this, lying is bad. Unless you're lying to your ex-fiancé so your dad can get his money back. Besides, it was a white lie meant to protect Terry's integrity. Or something like that. My dad doesn't like lawyers or courts, so, that's it. Terry paid him back. And I told Terry that I had thought about it, but no, I didn't see a future together. I know. Now come the comments saying Olivia's letter was sincere, that what I did was wrong, that I became the Terry in the story, and that what I did was just as cruel. I'm sure I won't be able to sleep tonight thinking about all the mean things you'll say. To those of you who don't have a crayon jammed up your nose and actually understand how justice works. Who realize that canceling a wedding 24 hours before, for ridiculous reasons, deserves consequences. I'm glad I got to know you through your messages.